Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cow Daily today. Today we are joined by one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion, Gail Bradbrook. I'm not going to do a massive intro. I'll just bring her in because she can talk for herself. So, how you doing, Gail? Are you good today?
I'm laughing because I'm perimenopausal, so blessings and greetings to any other women in their 50s or in that landscape. It's a fucking nightmare to be honest.
Mate. Yeah.
Anyway, apart from that, I am all right. Yeah.
Well, I hope it gets better. I have women in my life who are going through the same. So, as much as I can never feel it, I understand.
You can feel it when they're like.
Oh, aye. Fortunately, I've got a strong chin.
You know what I keep saying to women, Mike, is because it's a rite of passage for us. It's a rite of passage, and I've been in others. I've been in all-night ceremonies, throwing up. I've had 2 children. I've been in childbirth, but at least with them, you've got some idea it's going to be fucking over soon. You know? This one, you're like, they sometimes say, yeah, women are sometimes in it for 10 years. You're like, you're joking.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm all right.
Well, blessings to you, mate. And like I say, I do understand to a level a man can. Great to have you on here. First thing I want to say is, right, Extinction Rebellion, people usually say, oh, they're a bunch of middle-class arseholes, but you're not middle class at all and you're a co-founder. Please expand on this system error in my brain. How is this?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, there's lots of tropes. If you're an activist, there's loads of tropes around, aren't they? And you can't win. So one of them is that you're a dole scrounging whatever layabout, you know, working class sort of dog whistle, or you're middle class and privileged. So you can't win. I actually, as it happens, you know, my dad was a coal miner.
Yeah.
I feel working class in my bones, and I have a relatively middle class lifestyle, so I'm a bit of both, really. And obviously, the more sort of capacity you've got in your life, the more you can think about stuff like the fact that the environment's going to hell in a handbasket.
Totally. I mean, we had I've mentioned it briefly just before we went on air there, but this morning I had a real moment about all of this. I mean, people know I'm in France at the minute, and I was saying to you that it's 27 degrees here already. I woke up in the night with the heat, and I was awake for 4 hours, so I'm really tired. So that's another personal aspect of how this is going to go for people. Yeah. And I've had a short window to actually walk my border collie, who's obviously very high energy, and that's the window he's got for the rest of the day until it's dark. And I don't think people understand those little things about life changes that are coming for people. But also as well, I got quite emotional as well, and I'll tell you why. And you definitely would know what I'm about to say, which is there's this reality of what's happening, the scientific accepted reality, and there's all these other realities. And I find it really hard, talking to people who don't understand that this is the reality we've got to act on now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all of these realities will just dissolve away.
Yeah.
How do you find that? Because, I'm looking for a bit of solidarity this morning, I guess. I was honestly bursting up with tears because of the amount of interactions that I've been having with people where it's just a brick wall. It's hurting. You know?
Yeah. Do you know what? To be honest, Mike, the way I handle that is that I name it. I just say. Something like I'm an environmental activist. I'm really aware on a sort of deep level about what's happening, and I find it quite alienating to be in conversations with people where that doesn't seem to be part of their reality. So rather than making them bad and wrong, I'm just naming how it is for me. And it is odd, but we are at a time when the media is not doing its job, hasn't been for years on the whole, and so people don't get it. So when you're talking about the heat, for example, there's this phenomena called the wet bulb temperature. It's something that people need to be increasingly aware of, which is the temperature at which the human body can't survive any longer. You have about 6 hours to get to a cooling center. And obviously some parts of the world won't have them. Some people won't make it. And some bodies, the temperature will be lower. It's about 35 degrees if you wrap a flannel around a thermometer. So I was in Paris a few years ago, and when you're in places where there's a lot of concrete, it absorbs the heat and it lets it out at night. So it's just as hot at night. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I got up and had a shower, but there's just a few degrees warmer and everybody in the city would die, unless they got into somewhere cooler, you'd cook. So that's one of the things that we're facing, is that significant parts of the planet, people just won't be able to live in them anymore. And where are they going to go? What's going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was in Andalusia recently, I was speaking to a couple of lads from South Sudan, and that was like the first port of call. It was right on the south coast, a place called Huelva.
Yeah.
And it really sort of brought a lot of it home, because you're seeing this passage of people around the bus stations in these cities in the south, and then obviously people proliferate or like around Europe from there.
Yeah.
And
something like a fifth of all emissions in the atmosphere to do with the UK historically. So we've got a deep responsibility to what's happening elsewhere in the world, but instead what we're doing is whipping up racism.
Quite. I mean, that's the capitalism seems to, the only answers it has is finger pointing. And this is in line with what I was saying to you before, just on that societal level. Like the people that I'm coming into contact with who are like trying to make plans based on unreality are like just an individual aspect of the whole. And like it's that propaganda that's coming from the media, and almost they're repeating that back. And I just, like I say, if we had actually been able to talk last week, which was when we were originally going to, it would have been a different conversation. I would have just interviewed you. But you know what it is this morning? I just want to talk to a human being, mate, because I'm really feeling it.
Yeah,
I'm feeling this.
Sorry, you know? There's something called the Climate Psychology Alliance, and people can get support through that. When people really get what's happening, it has a deep impact on us emotionally. And I think that's, you know, I'm not the only person who thinks this, but mental health is the sort of leading edge of the breakdown. We are in a breakdown. I mean, we started the breakdown in the UK in about 2015, according to academics. So, and you know, Mike, you can get really depressed and down about this. And I would say it's important to feel the feelings, but not get stuck there. Yeah. So one of the things is to connect to nature and the beauty that's here. Like life is transient, even without a climate emergency, you know, an ecological emergency. So it's about connecting to beauty and not getting stuck in despair, you know, because the antidote to despair is to go and do something, be with some people. And the other thing I always say, especially to young people, like, it's not like it was okay what was happening. It's not okay for something like 5,000 years. We've been in this paradigm of domination and control. It doesn't work well for human beings. It's not how we want to live. It's not how we want to be together. It wrecks our nervous systems. And this is a sort of conclusion, I suppose, of hundreds and thousands of years of a domination system, of which neoliberal capitalism is the sort of manifestation now. And like you say, it hasn't really got anywhere to go. And so what it does, which is sort of fascinating, is it just lies to itself. It lies to itself. It's through economics. It's just a joke. Like the way the Bank of England and some of the, you know, banks of international settlements talk to themselves about this stuff. I mean, I could wax on about this, but there's like a guy who got a Nobel Prize, which is just nonsense. Like, it says that the optimal warming for the planet would be 4 degrees because people mostly inside and they can sort of have air conditioning. It doesn't, it misses like the small matter, which is that we have to eat food, and that mostly grows outside. There's just, and the insurance industry is lying to itself. Capitalism is just having a lie to itself.
It is, and then it's going to, like any ideology, is going to be dissolved by reality. But unfortunately, so a lot of us, and again, the racism around immigration seems to be its only response. But then what happens when it's completely unavoidable for people to actually acknowledge this reality? And then also you look from the sort of social engineers, let's call them. Climate change is basically a hoax to them. I mean, I think they know it isn't, but for some reason they're pumping that at people. I mean, let's talk about the sort of conspiracy side of it. Like, you obviously having set up one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion, I assume you've been targeted by these people. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there was a conspiracy theory about me personally. So it's just bizarre because I'm not really quite an open-minded person, genuinely. So if someone has a perspective, I think, where's the truth in this? But when somebody's got a conspiracy theory about you personally, that you're being funded by Summit, you're like, you know, I know it's in my bank account, it's not great. It's certainly not got any of this supposed money in. They thrust dossiers in your hand, and it's I think with any of this, where I've come to is I'm really interested in like Ian McGilchrist's work, The Mastering His Hemisphere, the stuff about the brain hemispheres. I'm like, why are we doing this to ourselves as a species? And to understand that when our nervous systems are in a state sort of fight, flight, freeze, you go into sort of left hemisphere pathology, to use that language, and you're just basically bullshit. I mean, it's called cognitive dissonance, isn't it? The fancy term, but we just have different forms of bullshit that we're willing to believe. You want to believe any kind of story that's consistent with making you feel better. That's what the left hemisphere gets up to, and it's seen as logical. It's just literally not, but it's been systematized in the world. And so then the question is like how to respond to that. And I think, like, first of all, get to know your own inner nervous system, which to say is quite tricky when you're in the perimenopause, because it's like woo all over the place. But you know, get to know it and get some whatever practices work for you. And also in other cultures, they have practices for the group, like whichever groups you're in, to cultivate what's called the good mind. You know, like I think it was Alexander Solzhenitsyn, I can never say his name properly, that said the line between good and evil runs through every human heart, but it's actually down the middle of your head. It's not to make the left hemisphere bad, but it's not supposed to be in charge. And it is in what some of us call whiteness, in this culture of separation and scarcity and powerlessness.
Yeah. I mean, I read recently that you had an ayahuasca ritual and it kind of triggered this experience in Extinction Rebellion. Do you want to talk about that and like the sort of dawn of Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't one, to be honest. I went away. I've worked with medicine or teacher plants for some time, so it wasn't a one-off. And I've done lots of sort of healing stuff. I'm still a bit of a mess, like, just to say I'm still a dick. But yeah, I went as far as Costa Rica because I wanted to work with Iboga, actually, which is a medicine in Gabon, the Bwiti people. And in this 2-week period, I did a taster session amount of Iboga, which threw me into despair. And then I had to take another lot the next night, which was what's called a flood dose. And then I worked with the Cambo medicine, you know, the monkey frog poison, and 3 ayahuascas in a 2-week period. So it was a bit hardcore.
Just a bit, I bet.
Yeah. But literally, Mike, I just had wanted to start mass civil disobedience since 2010. And I was sort of, you know, I have a science background, by the way. I'm a molecular biophysicist by training. And so I always feel like I want to couch things in scientific terms that sound a bit out there. There is a sort of, the way the science is these days is there's sort of a consciousness beyond us. Not everybody signs up to that, but like the physics, you know, the cosmic hologram and all that stuff. There were interesting shifts in how we understand life and the universe and everything. So just saying there could be a scientific thinking around this. I have practices that make prayers and offerings and requests and offering my life in service. And I was, you know, please help me to deal with anything in me that's in the way. Help me to find my team, and help me to find out what it is I need to know. And all of the prayers were answered very magically and mysteriously and beautifully. That's what.
Yeah, you don't have to sell it to me. I believe and I'm not just sort of wholly rigid, you know.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's something other, you know, call it the universe, God, whatever we want to term it as. I just believe it's part of the whole.
Yeah. Have you worked with those medicines then, Mike?
Well, I've smoked DMT before. I haven't had the actual ayahuasca itself. I took the capitalist version of it, straight to the point.
It's a DMT is about 15 minutes, isn't it? I hear.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was interesting, man. I was seeing a lot of because we did it properly. It was just in a flat, but like we did it properly with a sitter and everything like that. Yeah. And my friend at the time, he turned into like an Egyptian scarab beetle, and there was like rainbows coming out of his eyes, and I'm just sitting there like, and then I started laughing, and I tell you why. I saw like a 6D shape, and I couldn't explain that in words, but I started laughing at just the sheer novelty of what I felt at the time. Was like everything is up for debate in terms of like, you know, how we see reality. So seeing that 5D shape was just presented to us by like an alien entity, and like kind of nodded, like, and I just started howling laughing at that shape because it was so like, oh well, that shape makes all the sense. I don't need.
Well, let me tell you a bit of physics, right? So, and I'm just name dropping and showing off here, but my first husband's called Jeff Forshaw is a lovely man, actually. He writes books with Brian Cox.
Mm-hmm.
So he's written about fundamental physics. And in my first iboga journey, I was shown this pulsating geometry that was creating new bits of universe. And but I was also in abject despair, and I was also shown things about neurophysiology and brain wiring and how and that all became part of the next journey that I did. I got my brain rewired. But this is a lot for a Monday morning, isn't it? Anyway, so then I was with Jeff, and he started telling me the conclusion of this book, Universal. And he said, you know, about physics, it had gone into, I think, quite an arrogant phase when it was talking about the theory of everything. And this idea that you have a starting point of the laws of physics and you can simulate them. There's a project called the Eagle Project, and you get this sort of known universe. But what they've understood from the maths is that you could have this different point in space, different set of physics, different universe, etc. And this is where the sort of theory of the multiverse comes from. And the maths behind it is geometry in multi-dimensions, right? And he starts telling me about this geometry, it's pulsating and making bits of universe. And I was like, I fucking saw that on the iboga. You know, he's
exactly. Yeah, it's the symbolism of these things that we see. It's kind of almost little motifs between each experience I've found, you know.
Yeah.
And that symbol is just, I've never not thought about that, like in terms of how a symbol can just say everything that needs to be said and just promote that emotional response, you know. In terms of like, this is all bullshit, isn't it? This kind of reality, we can actually, it felt like you can actually bend and shape things a little bit. That's what I was left with. Like, don't it gave me hope rather than anything. And I didn't feel scared either, which like whenever I would perceive those kind of experiences, like I can delineate, because when I was young, I was a raver. So, you know, I'm not, this isn't my first rodeo. DMT is a different thing. It's not a drug.
Yeah.
It's not a drug at all. It's very different.
God molecule, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've actually interviewed Dr. Rick Strassman, who wrote did he DMT the spirit molecule? That was it. Yeah. Nice man he is. Actually, remind us we're going to be doing a follow-up soon, so I've got to follow it up with him.
Yeah, with one of the psilocybin researchers this week. Last night we did a dispatcho for. I'm going to be in court this week and next week with a jury trial. So we made some prayers and offerings in that way.
Good.
Yeah. Just to say on the cultural appropriation front that this was gifted by a lineage of people to my friend to bring it here. I think we need all the help we can get, really. And
I was just going to come on to that with you. You've got a court case this week. Do you want to like basically give it from the start?
Yeah, so I took a sort of hammer and braddle to a window at the Department for Transport, just one pane of glass. I'd broken one other window at a bank, and that one, it turned out, was bulletproof glass. So the bank window, which is a local branch bank of Barclays, that was £500 plus VAT to sort it out. And this one, they said, was 28 grand. So I had to be in front of a jury with it. And so they would count it as criminal damage. But obviously with these things, you do it for a reason. Like to put it in a nutshell, Emmeline Pankhurst said there's no greater argument in modern politics than that of the broken pane, the suffragettes. And the Chartists use window breaking as part of their suite of tactics. And when you have a lockdown in the media for covering things, then you have to do things of that nature. And there's more to social movement theory than that, but that's an aspect of it. So anyway, that's what I did. So clearly not disputing that, but I refuse to be just labelled a criminal as a result. I want to be able to talk to the jury. However, it's really changed recently, the whole jury trial situation. When activists get to talk to the jury, quite a few acquittals have happened. Not just for climate activists, but, you know, Palestine Action folks, etc., Animal Rise and others. But they have this thing where they say you've got no defence in law. So they sort of close down your ability to speak to the jury. So you can't talk about that because it's not relevant. So basically, some climate activists have gone to jail for contempt of court because they mentioned climate change in front of the jury.
Right.
That's quite shocking, isn't it? Just mentioning climate change and they got put in jail for contempt of court.
They've got propaganda and silence. Yeah. Silencing people, it seems.
Yeah. That's a beautiful summary. That's exactly what authoritarianism is. Yeah. I don't think we're like on a slippery slope towards it. I think we're in it now. I think that's...
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it completely. I mean, after the elections in the UK, for one, and all of the stuff that we could get into the weeds about there, but we won't. We'll stay on track. But there's so much that I agree with you on here. It's I feel to say how people couldn't, because everything that you're saying is backed up with evidence. And it's as I say, I'm just sitting talking as a human being this morning, and I'm just like appreciative that people like you actually got out there and did it. So what are the chances you getting stuck in the jail then, mate? What's going to happen?
We don't know how it's going to unfold, because we don't know how the judge... I have a different judge. There's this judge that's a bit... think of him as a bit like a Harry Potter baddie. He's called Silas Food. And he's the one that's been sticking people in jail, and it's a bit stupid, really, if I think an overreaction. But one of the things that's happened is that some people have been holding up signs to let the jury know that you have a right to acquit based on your conscience. It's a really key part of the jury is actually the functional part of democracy in the UK when it's given the information. So the jury are us, we are the jury. Like it's a peer, isn't it? It's a peer group. So it's really important that they know that they can acquit according to their conscience. So somebody held up the sign, and guess what happened to that person, right? They got referred to, is a woman called Trudy Warner. She's a retired social worker. She got referred to the Old Bailey, and they referred it to the Attorney General, whether she's perverting the course of justice, right, by literally sharing some information. Now, the Old Bailey, where she got referred to, has a plaque on the wall. And do you know what it says on the plaque? The jury has the right to acquit according to their conscience.
No way.
Yeah, you couldn't make this shit up anymore.
Oh,
I mean, it's not written in slightly old English, but it's like it's on the wall. And we're just holding up what's on the wall. So goodness. So there's now 25 people, I think, being referred to the Attorney General, whether it should be perverting the course of justice, which is a significant crime, or contempt of court. And basically, of course, the jury should just know that. I mean, and in my case, I think, Mike, you have to be careful about talking about cases actually in the run up to a court case.
Yeah, you do.
So I would say generally, I think that as long as people are allowed to speak their truth and give voice to why they did things and get into the detail, then whatever the jury decides, it's fine. Like, I don't think people should be allowed to just go around randomly breaking windows without a very, very good reason. That should always be questioned.
Yeah. So you're looking for it to be acquitted on conscience of the jury rather than contesting.
I'm not actually looking for anything other than to say what I think and why.
That's fucking brave as shit. That, like,
yeah,
it really is. I mean, like, yeah, I can tell you mean it.
Mm.
It's like you're like detached from the outcome. In your heart, or do you really feel detached?
Yeah, definitely. I had a beautiful friend called Polly Higgins who tried to bring forward the law of ecocide, and that's been growing since she died, actually, taken up by another friend. But what she always said was, whatever happens, let it be for the best.
Bloody hell.
Yeah,
you know, I've interviewed Just Off Oil people, yourself and others. He's genuinely brave as fuck.
Oh.
Like, there's a lot of people like come with this big, like, I am thing, overcompensating for shit, and you should just like really calm and like, yeah, I might go to jail.
Yeah, well, truthfully, I don't know if you study any like therapeutic theory. Like, I'm interested in internal family systems at the minute, so I kind of have this experience of myself, and I think this is true of all of us. There's like an inner spirit. There's the sovereign person. They know what they're doing, and you know, there are parts of me, Mike, that are like, you know, don't lock me up. You know, there are parts of me that just want to feel comfortable, just want to go and lay on the sofa and eat some biscuits, you know, like, I mean, it's not all courageous, but I think that all of us have that spirit. And actually, do you know, like, if you're not in that aspect of yourself, at least some of the time, you're not really in life. Like, that's the big horrible thing about consumer capitalism, is it just shuts us down into these narcissistic but comfort-seeking control freaks.
Yeah.
That's not fun to be. Like, it's just damaged individuals and groups you know, not in the flow of life. It's and it's got to change. So yeah,
it does. But the fact is that you are the point of the spear, and like it blows my mind the level of bravery that you're showing. Because I was like, right, I want to speak to this person myself and just take the temperature. And like, you're real, aren't you? You're not a lie.
Yeah, I do mean it. Yeah, I do. I feel like this is what my life's for, really. Yeah, but I just want to emphasize the fact also that I am a twat as well. You know,
well, there's that as well. I mean, we all are. We've all got that. But like,
I don't know. It's sort of like human beings. We have that ability to care that deeply, really, isn't it? So, like, I know it sounds very hippie-ish, but it is fundamentally about love.
Never apologize for being hippie. I might have a skinhead, but within my heart beats patchouli oil. I can assure you of that.
Mike was in this dispatcher in the garden last night. My kids were hanging. I've got teenage boys hanging out the window, going, "You're really mad now, Mum." Yeah.
How are the kids about the jail thing?
All right, actually, the things got slowed down because of COVID and these various rulings. You know, that's what's been happening. Like, my case was impacted by the Colston statue case.
Right, I see.
So you can no longer argue that criminal damage is proportionate aspect of human rights legislation in terms of the right to protest. You can't argue that's been dealt with. And let me tell you something more interesting about that in a second. But so it means it's been slowed down. It means they're older, and I think that they sort of understand that this is, yeah. I don't want to speak on their behalf, basically, but I think they're okay with it. I mean, who knows? Like, if I could get jailed for sort of up to 2 years, so that's not cool, is it? What I wanted to tell you is what these rulings say. There's one called the Thacker ruling, the Colston ruling. They say you didn't need to do that because we've got a functional democracy. Or you could use a court system, and you're like, oh, really? is that how it is? A functional democracy? Is this what this is? Like, you can have neoliberalism, and
jeez, man.
You know, I mean, even already 1 in 8 British people don't think it's a functional democracy, and I think something like 72% don't feel like they've got a real say in things. So, how would a functional democracy include, like, last year 40,000 people died in excess deaths, like social murder now, like the government's not even that basic contract in between the state and you, which says, yeah, I'll put up with some restrictions on my freedom. 40,000 people died last year. And that we don't have like plans. We never had a plan for a pandemic. We're not doing the adaptation around climate. The Committee on Climate Change are clear on that. We're failing on our targets around it. We're not leading the world. We're pulling back. It's just like, and then this idea that you can take things to court. I don't know, Mike, if you've covered stuff around injunctions here, like rich.
A little bit last year.
The top and bottom of it is that rich people can buy law, or they can go on law, and avoid tax. There's no rights for nature, but injunctions are becoming a real phenomena. That, I mean, they were used around anti-fracking protests, but part of my protest at the Department for Transport was about the HS2 project, which we couldn't get into. But I think there's something like 162-mile injunction now. You go anywhere near that and try to stop that project. So some of it's just consider these acts of self-defense that they've injuncted us. And then also, if a government pass climate-friendly laws, it can be sued by fossil fuel companies through used to be called investor-state dispute settlements or corporate courts, and they're not even in the public realm. So it's just like, there's these people in these high courts that are making these decisions and spouting this crap.
Do they have another planet to go to? Because I'm not logically getting my head around how they could have families, kids, just like everybody else on either side of this argument, and they're putting all this restrictive stuff in place. And in the past, I could understand it because people would personally benefit and the planet wasn't going to shit, or at least it wasn't acknowledged scientifically, or it wasn't there with the science.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the case. Now the science is clear. but they're putting things in place which is like literally counter to their existence.
Yeah.
What
I mean,
can you speak to that? Because obviously I think about that and I can't get anywhere other than a system error in my brain. So what's that about?
Yeah. Well, it's back to the left hemisphere. In truth, cognitive dissonance. There's a theory called terror management theory, which is that parents would rather their children be killed than have to face they've got a belief in a system that makes them feel comfortable and makes them not afraid of death. And take that away, they'd rather have their kids. So the examples that are usually used is like the Incas, like throwing their kids off a tower, or some jihadist mother thinking, her son's in heaven or whatever. But I think consumer capitalism's like the worst of the lot. Like you can't take that away from people, and when it's this sort of level of comfort and the way that modernity offers this story of progress. I mean, it's breaking down, so people sort of know, but it's just. I have this as we start the call on this on a regular basis. People find it really hard to face this, so your brain will just do something else, but when you're in a position of responsibility like the law courts, then that's the thing. And this is where it's interesting from a social movement theory point of view. It's called the legal pillar. There's the pillar of economics, pillar of the media. The legal pillar is quite it's very few people that've got quite a lot of power. And so I don't feel like I'm on trial in some ways. I feel like it's the legal system's the issue, not me. Obviously, I broke a window, and if a jury wants to say, well, we get it, but anyway, I shouldn't talk about my case. But I think that there was the chief exec of Shell recently was saying it's not the right time to act. You're like, how can you?
Haven't the oil companies known about this for years, and it was just
they've been lying to us.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of things at play. One is they did climate denial, and then they moved on to something like people need to know about called discourses of delay, about 4 different types, 3 in each. Look it up, discourses of delay, which would be stuff like whataboutism, or what about China, what about India? They never say what about America, by the way. It's a geopolitical point that's been made. It's point score there.
They never mention per capita when it comes to China either, which is less than the UK, but that's a detail that seems to get lost.
Yeah, you can debunk all these things. But they're just things that are offered up to people. And then the biggest one of all is like, it'll damage the economy. And, we've been really brainwashed into this idea that the economic system is a sort of emergent property of life rather than a chosen thing. Mrs. Thatcher said there is no alternative, and they just clearly are. And it's something that I'm battling and trying to push in climate movements. I think we really have to hold an alternative vision for our economy, which would be degrowth. It's not a sexy term, but it's a well articulated alternative. And when you're in a time of emergency, like one way of saying it is if Hitler was lining up, but the climate emergency is statistically about 50 Hitlers. All bets are off. You just go into emergency mode. You try and resist and make change, and the economy goes into a sort of war footing. I don't mean to say that in a way that enables authoritarianism. I just mean to say that's one way of thinking about it, right? So we're talking about half the planet dying, according to one of the main scientists. The idea that we can have a managed transition, that needed to start 30 years ago. So that's finished. That time's done with. And certain economists, like the ones at the Deutsche Bank, say, well, we either stop having a growth-based economic system, in which case this civilization's finished, or we keep destroying the life support systems of the earth, in which case this civilization's finished. So it's over. So what are we going to do about it? Which is a time of, as I said, it's not like it was okay. So then what we're going to do together is build the new. I think there's several things that we need to do, Mike. One is take care of ourselves, like understand our, as I said earlier, nervous systems, be in groups that are functional and work out how to have them run well. think about our local communities. I don't mean from a prepper point of view, but like, how does local democracy work? How can you shore that up? How can you meet the sort of issues when there's be a lack of food or whatever? What can we do together? So enjoy life, like, as well. It's part of it.
I really appreciate your time, and honestly, I can say I love you and all of the people doing this. I really do. It's like this morning, I'm feeling it now. Like, I got proper emotional. As I say, because at the top of the show, the stuff that I was talking about that I'm experienced, I'm sitting here sweating, and it's like, what, 10 o'clock in the morning or something. It's crazy. I mean, I understand the world gets hot, but then it gets cooler. People don't understand this is happening so frequently. It's like,
I think people have to get their head around non-linear events or tipping points, so the climate system will tip into a new state of, it's called the house Earth system. That's what the scientists think. And they think it could happen at 2 degrees of warming. It could be soon, like 1.5. And they're now saying that's where we're heading sooner. It's just
I saw some well dodgy graphs last week, but when we're not getting well dodgy graphs, so I'm just trying for this not to just become the noise, because there's so many other people who refuse to like tune into the reality. So I don't want it to become like a noise. Oh, there's some more dark stuff. There's some more. I want to be where you're at, where I'm still trying to do something about it. But I'll be honest, this morning I was like, what's the effing point of all of this? Like, how do we do that? But talking to you, I kind of like I'm just inconvenienced in a field trying to walk a dog. You're staring down the barrel of a jail sentence. It's about time I pulled my socks up. Not that I'm wearing any, because it's too fucking hot.
I mean, people get murdered in other countries. Some of the people I work with who've had 6 murders, in Mexico and Ghana, it's on a different level. Like, the people can do stuff here still, even though the protest laws have changed. And I think the responsible thing to do, we've all got young people in our lives that we care about. The responsible thing to do is to be informed and to face it, which includes feeling it, and then think about what's yours to do. Can I mention something, Mike? Actually,
of course you can, mate.
A program called theweek.000, and it's a really beautifully put together way of getting to understand what the nature of the crisis is and helps a person think about, well, what's mine to do? Because we've all got something to do. Like, maybe you want to figure out growing local food, or getting elected locally, sort of Froome flat pack democracy style, whatever. Like, you don't all have to get arrested. It's not like that's one part of the stuff, but there's so much to do. And like putting your head in the sand. Like, I used to think, what were people doing when fascism was rising up in Europe? What would I have done? And then you're like, oh, that's what people do, is put their head in the sand, don't they? Like,
it's strange, because like last year I was like thinking about this, because I was in France then as well, and we're talking about I was reading about the French resistance, because where I was, a place called Arbois, it's quite so it's actually the birthplace of Louis Pasteur, but that's a completely different thing. It was very sort of linked to the French resistance, that town. So I learned about that area, and it was a small amount of people who were part of the resistance. But you know what it is, after the war, so many more people claim to be part of the resistance than before. And what you are is the resistance. That's the other person who's willing to like get all of this crap because you know what you're doing is the right thing. And the thing is, there's so much shit talked about XR, right? That I just thought, I want to talk to you. I want to see what you think. I want to feel that person in one-to-one chat. And I think you're legit.
Thank you.
And I'm really appreciative of your time, mate. And I don't really know what else to say. That doesn't sound crass about the jail, but I think you know what I hope happens.
Well, listen, thanks for the work you're doing here, Mike. Like somebody said, go on Mike's podcast and read a little listen. And I just think it's really important in the media landscape that's so dearth of truth and good analysis, that we have people like you helping to including bringing me and other JSO people here, but all the other work that you're doing, so that people can make their own minds up, right? I mean,
I appreciate that, man, and I'm humbled by that, because it really is about people making their own minds up. I think we just want to present the truth, and then that's my contribution. I work hard at this every bloody day, and then other work as well. But I feel it's important. But my role, I feel, is to build as much of the sort of like independent media as I can. So I do that.
That's I'm part of something called XR being the change, and that's part of the work that needs to be done. I think we need to feel. One way I say it's like we're being invited back into the systems of life and feel there's like all the different aspects of the work that needs to be done, and that's your contribution. That's fantastic. Like not to we can put ourselves under pressure, and we can only do what you can do, but be doing something. That's the thing. Don't have your head in the sand. Not because I'm wagging my finger saying get your head out of the sand. Person who might have their head in the sand. I'm saying it because it's like really uncomfortable with your head in the sand. Yeah. You want to get out and smell it's actually quite good fun. I'm sure at times it's hard work, and my job has things in it that's difficult, but being in some kind of sense of purpose and contribution to something bigger than ourselves, I think, is a beautiful way to live. So
I agree. Yeah, I had like a long COVID experience before we brought the podcast back, and it gave us a lot of time to think about, is this really what I want to be doing? And the answer was still yes. So, and I feel like we can make a contribution and a difference, however small or big. So we'll just keep turning up every day and hope for the best. Truth, isn't it? So, eventually people get there. Fuck me, mate. I hope you stay out of the jail. I don't see what benefit to society it is of you being in the jail. But we've got that society, haven't we? So I'm just going to pray for you and just put them offerings out and just hope.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I've got a little Telegram group with updates for folks if they want to join. I can send you. I don't know if you do show notes.
Yeah, I'll share the links, and we'll do all that for you, mate. But like, I'll be keeping an eye on what's going on, and if it's possible in the future, please come back and let me know how you're getting on.
Yeah. I'll do it from the cell.
Oh God, I get somebody to smuggle in a mobile phone. Give it a wipe first, though. Hey, Gail, all the best, mate. Thanks for everything you do.
All right, lots of love. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Much love. See you later. That was Gail from Extinction Rebellion there. What a wonderful woman, man. Like, as I was saying at the top of the show, like I'm having an emotional moment still today about the climate emergency, but she's legit, isn't she? And you can't deny that. Like, anybody who wants to cast shade on them, you can't cast shade on her as an individual, can you? I forgot to put these up while she was still here, but just some messages of support. Glasgow for Red, unfortunately, I'll catch up later. He's at the hospital. Just want to share my love and appreciation for everything XR do. Zoe mentioned about how she's clinically vulnerable and heat's horrendous for her medical conditions, how people don't realize how badly this is all going to go. Bart Wadsworth is saying, laws written by rulers, resistant change the rules. We make them, not they make us. Remember, we shall win eventually, mate. Wonderful words there. So he's also saying, wish you every success in court, a brave woman, and I thank you for all you're doing. Slaz is saying, I wish I had the fraction of the bravery and fortitude of Gail. I'll try my best. There's more, but we don't want to keep going on. Hey, we can win. It's going to be hard, but we can win. And I feel a bit more lifted by talking to a person who's staring down the barrel of a jail sentence and still is at this. Can't fault that. That's mad inspirational, isn't it? If you want to support our work, go to patreon.com/cowdaily, patreon.com/cowdaily. Also, we have a PayPal link in the description if you want to make a one-off contribution to our work. Thank you very much for that. I mean, what do you even say about Gail? What an amazing person. I hope she stays out of the jail. Praying for that. Prayers up, everybody. Catch you later.